For the last 100 days, I challenged myself to write and post my daily thoughts. I named this series Wandering Thoughts, a challenge designed for me to test my creativity and in the process improve my writing skills. And in this process, I feel like I learned a lot about the creative process, how to go through the barriers of creativity, and also in terms of productivity, how to create an environment where I'm able to create something every single day. I confess that in the beginning it didn't really feel like much of a challenge because I had all of these ideas in my head, all these thoughts that I never shared with anyone, I never wrote about them, so it was quite easy to produce those first texts. But as I kept going and ideas started running out, I kind of started appreciating how hard it is to create fresh content and actually how unreliable and useless inspiration is. When I go through my day, I usually have a lot of ideas, and some of them I write down in my notebook so that I don't forget, but I don't usually pursue them. They just stay in the notebook as a title or as a very broad description. But as I started to have to turn those ideas into words and to actual content, those very easy ideas started to run out very quickly, and I soon started to have to input more and more work to turn those very broad ideas into actual texts. I think this is equivalent of low-hanging fruits, those ideas that are very easy to catch and just turn them into something, but as you start running out of those, you actually need to go and pick up the ladder and reach higher for those more complex ideas that need a little bit more work, but as you keep working on them and actually finish them, you feel much more satisfied. You put in the work to get out more out of those ideas. Now looking back, I think it was actually part of the creative process, and for me to become a better writer, to first pick out those low-hanging ideas and have the courage to reach for more complex ideas that need more input from my part, but that at the end are much more satisfying, and not relying on inspiration and actually realizing that inspiration is very unreliable and actually useless when it comes to creativity. During the whole challenge, I think I was driven by inspiration, those burning moments of creativity where you just want to create and you cannot stop until you have that thing down into paper. I think I was just driven by that feeling like 2 or 3 times during the whole 100 days. I quickly realized how unreliable inspiration is, and I turned into another power, if you want to call it, the power of hard work. I realized how powerful it is to just sit down and suffer for 10-20 minutes until something comes out, and I think it's usually how creativity happens. It's not just because of some weird muse coming from the sky. It's just because you sit down and you have this idea and you're trying to make it work, and it takes time. It's not a very sexy thing in today's internet to just say it takes time, but it's the truth. You have to go through the process, and it will hurt every single time you sit down. It was a feeling that never went away during the 100 days, except for those periods of inspiration that just comes out very easily, but that's not the rule. It turns out that the rule is simply to sit down and go through that mental barrier to get into a headspace where you are able to create, and first you write something and then you think about something else, and just is a snowball effect of ideas, and eventually you get into a deep state where you're just creating effortlessly, but you always need to go through those mental barriers first. If you follow this channel, you know how much I love to talk about productivity and performance and explore that topic, but nothing could prepare me for how much I would learn about myself and how to keep productive during these 100 days. As soon as I finished the challenge and I looked back and I saw all these ideas that I pursued, all the body of work that I was able to produce, I was dumbfounded. It's like, how the hell did I was able to produce so much content? but I cannot take all the credit. I believe that the challenge itself had some specific characteristics that made me produce so much, and this is not exclusive for me, and I think this works for everyone, so allow me to go a little bit deeper into these characteristics. So first of all, it was a daily challenge, so I needed to write something every single day. So it turned into a habit very quickly. And although, as we talked about, it was always a certain pain to start writing, it turned into a routine, a ritual to just write down and be able to perform. And the challenge itself had a sense of urgency because of that 24-hour limitation. Second, it was a public show, so it had a lot of accountability involved. If I didn't perform, if I wasn't able to post in that day, I was posting on my Instagram, people would know that I failed. So it drove me a lot to just get it done because I was afraid that people would judge me, and it's always a great motivator if we are performing in front of others, in this case on Instagram, but it still turned out to be very effective. And third one, it was a feasible task. If I didn't procrastinate, if I just got from my full-time job and spent the evenings creating this piece of content, I knew I had enough time to perform and do well. And it turned out to be very good to know the amount of time and effort estimated for every single day. And these three characteristics of the challenge turned out to be very, very crucial for me to perform and be able to produce so much during this challenge. Because I learned so much about the productivity sides of this challenge, I wrote an entire blog post dedicated to the principles I learned and how to apply them to your work routine. You don't need to go to the challenge to learn those. If you go to the blog post down below, you can find a link and you can learn about the principles and apply them to whatever you want to become better at. If you ask me to summarize what I learned from this challenge, I think the biggest lesson is that hard work is the gateway to creativity and not the other way around. And now that I'm done with the challenge, I think the real challenge begins. Hey, if you want to go deeper into these topics, check out the blog. I mainly write about productivity, performance, and my experiences in this self-development journey. I also have a podcast where I get to talk about these topics with inspiring people and learn more about their mindset and tactics. Enjoy the content, and I see you on the next video. Ciao.